My name is Randall Shans, also known as Mahatma Randy, and today I am going to read you a story called Just Moments Before the End of the Age from my first book, Ice Cream and Venom, which was unfortunately written under the name Kevin Long, my pseudonym. I'm working on changing that. In any event, I'm going to read you this story. I have been told by some of the people that have been watching these videos that I babble too much in the beginning of them, so I am not going to do that anymore. However, in this one case, I am going to warn any Christian viewers that they might be offended by this story. Now, I personally don't find it offensive at all, and I'm a Christian. I think that it's more of a cautionary tale, but be warned. If you're a particularly strident fundamentalist or literalist or whatever, you might want to sit this one out. It's up to you. Again, personally, as a Christian, albeit rather a potty-mouthed one, I don't find anything in it offensive, but your mileage may vary. Okay, here we go. Just moments before the end of the age. I must have been walking across campus when it happened. It was a small Bible college on the edge of Appalachia. Pretty scenery, naive girls, stolid minds. I hated the place, and it hated me. It and I were a poor marriage from the moment we'd met. But I'd made my bed, and I had no choice but to lie, cheat, and steal in it. I'd gone to a bigger, better state school before my nervous breakdown had landed me here, the victim of loving parents who felt a Christian environment would be better for me than a secular one. I'd met a better class of people. I'd get in less trouble. My mental wounds would heal more quickly here. Wrong on all counts, of course. And I suspected as much before I'd agreed to come, but among my ailments at the time was a profound crisis of faith. The prospect of a few answers to life's more profound spiritual questions had no small appeal for me in that state of mind. I quickly learned the truth, however, that you can no more have a Christian school than you can have a Christian toaster or a Christian jar of mayonnaise. Schools are organizations, things, and Christianity is a belief. Organizations tend to perpetuate themselves regardless of what they teach, and beliefs, well, they're altogether too easily trampled by organizations, whether they want to or not. And in this case, their main purpose was preaching to the choir. If you'd had a crisis of faith, they'd just as soon you left. I had nowhere to go. So I stayed, and I kept my mouth shut, and I prayed, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. I suppose I was lying to God. I didn't actually believe at all. I wanted to. I tried to. I begged to. But I was always a knower and not a believer. Whatever trick there was to faith, I never quite mastered it. Not that it matters now. As I said, I was walking across campus, downhill from the classroom building, and on the gravel shoulder of the road when I heard screaming, frantic, unhinged screaming, coming from the college president's house. They called it a house. Really, it was more like a Neo-Georgian mansion, the finest building on the campus. Meanwhile, I lived in an 80-year-old condemned and heavily water-damaged building, and most of the rest of the students lived in tiny little concrete boxes that wouldn't have looked out of place in a Chinese prison camp. Am I better? Yes. No point in denying it now. No point in denying anything. I walked on, curious about the bedlam, but not curious enough to actually check it out. I kept seeing things out of the corner of my eyes, but when I turned to look, they were gone, or simply not there to begin with. Great, I thought. I'm hallucinating again, just like at the other school. But as it turns out, I wasn't. As I climbed the small hill to my dorm/hovel, the unhinged laughter stopped, and I heard a gunshot out of the president's house. But it was muffled a bit by the library between his place and where I lived, so I didn't really recognize it for what it was at the time, but thinking about it since, I recognized that's what it was. I went into the dark, dusty lobby. There, sitting on smelly, ancient couches and standing in every free space, was damn near everyone from my dorm, all watching the one TV. A basketball game, I assumed. Lots of Hoosiers in my dorm, and they seemed constitutionally incapable of thinking of anything else. I ignored them, and the electric feeling of fear emanating from them, and I went upstairs. I took a nap in my room. I didn't dream. Isn't that odd? I don't guess it is now that I think about it. The time for dreams is done. Anyway, I was rudely awakened by a polite man shining a flashlight in my face, despite it being broad daylight. I was startled, but unafraid. I'd never seen him before, but somehow he didn't seem like a threat. Maybe it was the toga he was wearing? He told me to come downstairs. Why? Everyone has to go. It's mandatory. Fire drill? I asked. Something like that, the man said. I relented, pulled on my pants, slipped on my shoes, and followed him down the 3 flights of sagging stairs. He pointed out the front door, so I went, and he headed back up for whoever else was still up there. On my way out, I caught sight of what looked like New York City burning on the TV, with people with jetpacks flying around between the buildings. A science fiction movie, I guessed, until I realized it was CNN. What the hell? I looked closer. The jetpacks looked more like wings, now that I was paying attention. Another man in a toga yelled for me to come outside, so I did, distracted and curious, but still not terribly frightened. Nearly everyone from the school had been arranged in a single-file line. I dutifully stood in the back of it. Looking far way ahead, I could see the seminary students from the school on the hill across the road at the head of the line. Behind me, people from the apartment complex in the rear of the campus were lining up. The wind was coming up the valley from the road and carrying the smell of stagnant, algae-filled creeks along with it. There were several men in togas marching up and down our line, occasionally talking to people. The man who'd gotten me out of bed came out of the rickety old dorm and motioned to one of the other toga-clad men who came up to him. I noticed absently that what I'd taken to be a flashlight before was a halo hovering above his head. How the hell had I missed that? While I watched, two dove-white wings unfurled from his back. Somehow he was facing me, so I didn't see the mechanics of it, and he rose up and flew away. I tracked him as far as I could, and I was rather startled to see several holes in the sky. Empty spots, tunnels, that went somewhere and broke off at crazy angles other than the three directions people were supposed to be able to see. It gave me a headache just to look at it. I blinked and I looked away. Our line moved forward, slowly. There was a lot of talk and speculation and fear in the queue, of course, but I was strangely calm. I'm dreaming, I said. Actually, you're not dreaming, one of the angels said to me. He was walking by with a large tray hanging around his neck, handing out sandwiches and juice boxes to the people in line. It's really the end of the world. So, what's going on? I asked as he handed me some Oreos. Judgment. Yeah, I'll be lined up for that. Oh, I said. What do you follow up a revelation like that with? Can I have a napkin? I stupidly asked. I promise I won't litter. Doesn't matter now, the angel said, handing me one, and moving on to the guy in front of me. The sun set. The line was moving very slowly. There were a lot of people to be judged, presumably. The other angels came by and handed out dinner. Kentucky Fried Chicken, actually. The sun went down. The angels themselves were looking rather bored by this point. It was an uncommonly pleasant night weather-wise. Can I ask you a question? I said to one of the angels as he walked by. Yeah, sure. You name it, sport. Weren't there supposed to be all kinds of signs and things before the end of the world? An antichrist? A tribulation? Oh, you betcha, the angel said. Well, where were they? I asked. I never saw any of that stuff. Oh, well, you gotta remember, that stuff was written down by a guy in the 1st century, right? So what was shocking to him is pretty commonplace to you, right? Space shuttles, internet porn, endless brush wars in Asia, frozen foods. So you're saying that I've been living through the tribulation and I somehow didn't realize it? I asked incredulously. Oh, sure, the angel replied. I mean, given his background and culture and all, John. Oh, you might get to meet him later, by the way. John was the kind of guy who'd find a kid on a big wheel sort of shocking. But you, coming from a more cosmopolitan background, you found his horrors passé. He stared pleasantly at me while I connected the dots. Presently, he lit a cigarette and took a drag on it. I had a sudden moment of panic and the idiot hope that somehow, if I could logically argue him into submission, this dream would end, and I'd wake up, and I'd be back to normal. But at the same time, I was increasingly realizing that I was more awake now than I had ever been before. The line moved forward slightly. The angel turned to leave. Wait, I said in a rush, blurring words together. What about the rapture? What about it, chum? He said. All the true Christians, they were supposed to be caught up to heaven in the twinkling of an eye, right? Snatched away from whatever they were doing. Planes crashing for want of a pilot, cars careening out of control on the highway. What about that? How can you have a tribulation without the rapture? How can we be in this situation without the signs that we were promised? I was frightened now, yammering. Oh, that, the angel said. Yeah, that happened, but there was only like 5 or 6 real Christians in the world. Nobody even missed them. I found I couldn't speak. He walked off to do things that angels do, whatever they are. The line moved slowly forward. The end. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to my YouTube page below. I am also on Facebook, and of course I've got several books written, heretofore all under the name Kevin Long, but I should have another one out under my real name fairly soon. That's about that. Anyway, again, thank you very much. If you enjoyed this, please tell your friends, and if you didn't enjoy this, please tell your friends so that they can come here and subscribe and mock me whenever I do stupid things like this again. Thank you very much, and have a good day.